Hello, everybody. My name is Barry Johnson. I'd like to welcome you back to another edition of Studio Talk. I get asked a lot of questions. Hey, Barry, I want to incorporate some hardware into my workflow. What should I focus on first and why? So let's get to it. All right. So I've got quite a few videos out there dealing with my perspective on hardware, but I get some very specific questions sometimes, and I think it's important that I'm going to share my opinion now. I can't make this clear enough to all of you folks out there. What I'm about ready to talk about right now is simply my opinion. It's been my experience. As with anything in the process of creating music or really creating anything, there's an artistic approach or a stylistic approach, and so some of you may have differing opinions on this. Just going to give you the way I would do it and the way I recommend doing it. I think the attraction towards hardware for many, especially I think the younger generation, and when I say younger generation, I'm talking let's say 35 and below, right? That's the younger generations. Those of us older than that, and especially those of us maybe 45 and older, already most likely grew up having to incorporate analog outboard gear into our recording processes because we didn't have digital when we first started out. So we had no choice but to do that. So some of us have an appreciation for it, and some of us have a dread of it. Okay, depending on what it was, especially if it wasn't that good of quality of hardware gear. Um, so but anyway, I think for a lot of young people, and I think for a lot of us, we like the idea of it. Of course, we hear that audio analog sounds better than digital. Plugins have come a long way, and they've done a great job. And you can do perfectly great work and completely be in the box. So don't think for 1 second that you cannot write, record, and create very well, great sounding music completely in the box, because you can. Okay. I'm here to tell you can't. And if you're not able to do it, it ain't got nothing to do with the tools you're using. Okay. Just work harder at it. Okay. Work harder at getting better, how to make better choices, because it's not the tool. All right. But for those that want to go forward, I will tell you that the difference in hardware is reasonably marginal. Okay. It's not something that's going to transform you. It's not going to transform your recording. It's just not. It will take them to a new level. I'll guarantee you that, but that's only if you already have the trained ears. It's like the first person who has a glass of wine for the first time in their life. I don't care how good it is, they want to take a drink of it and spit it out because it tastes terrible. But as you learn to really appreciate the differences between wines and the different vineyards and the different all the stuff that goes into that, you learn to appreciate that more. Much in the same way it is for appreciating the tonality differences between analog and digital. Okay. It is better. You can see all you got to do is look in my studio, and I've got a bunch of hardware. I have two 16-inch racks, or 16 1U rack things over here. So 32 rack units filled over here, almost completely filled. So I've got a lot of hardware. Much of it was accumulated over the years. And if I were to start over again today, I wouldn't do it. So let's get to the nuts and bolts of it. Okay. I had to get that basic understanding out of the way. Okay. So I will tell you that if you have that compelling gear addiction to want to add more hardware, add more hardware, add more hardware, I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to be going down a rabbit hole. All right. I'm not going to tell you not to do it. Okay. Because I'd be a hypocrite for doing that. Okay. I wouldn't do a lot of it again. But then again, like as we get older, we make mistakes and we learn where we probably should have spent our money differently. Okay. But a lot of people get into that. You'll see people get into 500 series racks and they're just so addicted. Somebody will never own a 500 series rack, and their very first one, they'll buy a 10 rack space unit. Do you have any idea how much money it takes to fill that up? Okay. And so they either take two routes. They're so obsessed with wanting to fill it up that they just don't care what they put in it. So they buy a bunch of cheap crap. Okay. And then put that in there. Yes, it looks great. It looks great, but it's still cheap crap. So you haven't done anything for yourself, but just look good to yourself and others that come in that don't know any better. Okay. So be careful to get into that addiction thing. Really think about what you need, which is what this video is about and what my years of experience have demonstrated to me. Here it is. Don't get your world rocked by this, okay? But you need today in the modern studio that you can do most things in the box and do them quite well. You need hardware. Hardware is going to be advantageous for you in two ways, in really only two ways. Okay. That is picking the right pieces that you're going to use while you're tracking to incorporate the tonality, the flavor, okay, of that hardware, and also do it where you're going to get more depth, more air. A lot of things come with using hardware that you cannot get without using it, okay? So you want to use that during tracking, but you want to use it sparingly. You're not trying to make your final decisions, okay? You're just getting the character. If you're using compression, you're just taming it a little bit. If you're using EQ, you're being very gentle with it. You already know with your experience in it what you kind of need to do by a process of trial and error, okay? So hardware for tracking is beneficial. Next, your mix bus. The thing the particular channel on your whole board that affects the decisions you make more than anything else is what do you have on your mix bus, whether that's in plug-in format or whether that's in hardware. Is it properly gain stage? Is it sat properly? All these things. So you want to think about tracking and mix bus, not for mixing. You're not buying hardware to mix via analog inserts. It's not that you won't use some of these tools from time to time for that. You will, but you don't buy it for that purpose. Otherwise, it's just impractical. Okay. You might as well full bloat go back to tape and ignore everything digital. If you've got that kind of money, knock yourself out. For those that worked in analog for the longest time and dealt with recalls and everything else like that, that stuff's a freaking nightmare. Okay. It's a nightmare. Okay. And you're never going to get the same mix you had before, even doing what you think is a perfect recall. All right. And so that's just not practical. Otherwise, let's just think you want to put an 1176 compressor across 20 tracks. You got to have 20 1176 compressors. You got that in your house? Okay. I don't. Okay. So now we're talking. Okay. In my opinion, you're investing in hardware. You're investing in hardware to track with and mix bus, right? So tracking, what do I need? Okay. I've said this before. A dedicated high quality mic preamp will make a difference in your recordings if you're tracking a lot of analog. If you're not tracking a lot of analog, don't waste your time on any of these tracking things, only on your mix bus, right? Maybe you do a lot of nothing but virtual instruments and you just don't do a lot of analog other than a vocal, okay? So you got mic preamps, okay? I'm a big fan. Get a Neve style, whether it's an actual Neve, which is going to be outrageously expensive, or a high quality Neve clone, or even some lower budget price Neve clones. Get yourself a pair of Neve clones, okay? Then a pair of API style preamps, okay? Now those are my recommendations to really cover the gamut and really cover just about everything you need to do. The rest of that stuff can be done by the built-in preamps on your interface, as an example. So you start with those. The reason for two is because many times you'll record things in stereo. You're going to record a piano. Many of you won't do that, but if you're going to record a piano, you're doing that in stereo. If you're recording drums, you're tracking your overheads in stereos. If you're recording many acoustic instruments, specifically acoustic guitar, most of the time you're recording that stereo in an XY format, okay? And so you want to have the same sound on both. You want to use the same mics. You want everything in that stereo chain to be identical, okay? So if you can only afford two stereo, then get two Neve preamps and maybe one API clone, okay? Or API unit, all right? So we start there. Next on EQ, all right? Now I'm only talking tracking here right now. You really just need two solid EQs, okay? Here's where I'm going to differ. I'm going to say two different EQs. I'm going to say two different flavors, two that cover different frequencies and different curves and things like that to give yourself more creative balances. If you're tracking many sources and you think you have to track with EQ, you just don't. You just skip EQ and don't do EQ, okay? Next up is compression. I think much in the same way of EQ, I'm going to follow the same thing up with compression. I'm going to say you should have an 1176 compressor or an 1176 style clone compressor. I'm going to say you should have an LA2A compressor or an LA2A clone. An LA3A could also be an acceptable supplement here. I know Audioscape makes the V3. I've done a review of that. I have one over there in my rack. It's sitting right back there. And I love that compressor. Okay. I would pick an LA2A over it, but if I didn't have an LA2A, I'd go to that bad boy in a heartbeat. It's reasonably priced. All right. So, I'm definitely going to have that. So um, I'm going to have two sets of mic preamps, preferably four. Okay. If I can, I'm going to have two of the same, preferably Neve if I can only have two of the same. I'm going to try to have two different types of EQ to have different EQ flavors and to be able to cover just about anything I need to do EQ wise on the tracking aspect of it. And then I'm going to have my compressor. Okay. And I'm going to do that. And so most of the time we're going to be recording one source at a time. So many times you could pick that one mic preamp, go into your EQ of choice, or if you needed to, you could stack them if you're trying to do something creative, although I wouldn't do that during tracking, but maybe you want to do that. Maybe it's going to give some advantages to you in tonality, okay? And then if you're doing that, you could go into a 1176 and right into an LA2A if you needed to do that. So you can do all these things if you need to, and it gives you complete flexibility. Then once you're mixing, if you need to, you can throw an LA2A or 1176 as an insert on key tracks in there. Okay. So that's what I would do on the front end. Okay. Again, I'm buying that for tracking. Now that's the approach that I would take. Now, it doesn't mean you can't go outside of that. That's just what I would do. That is the safe bet. Okay. That is the safe bet where you know you're going to be able to get great results. Next thing is going to be in your mix bus. Okay. In your mix bus, you're going to need a mix bus compressor, okay? And whether that's an SSL clone, as an example, like that 500 series STAM Audio, whether that's an SSL clone, many manufacturers make those. Audioscape makes one. Universal Audio makes one. There's tons of SSL clones out there, or you can buy the new box. That new box looks fantastic. The new SSL mix bus compressor looks fantastic, man. And if I had the money, that's what I'd go for. All right. And I'm going to buy one at some point for my studio, but I can't afford it right now. So you've got that. So you want to have a good one. Okay. Neve makes a tremendous one. It's like $4 or $5 grand. Okay. But anyway, you want to have a great mix bus compressor, and preferably if you can get yourself a stereo set of Pultec EQs. Okay. That you really is a great asset to your mix bus, having those, whether that be, my first choice would be real Pultecs. Okay. My next choice after that would be TubeTech. Again, very, very pricey. Probably my next going after that's probably going to be Audioscape. Very reasonably priced. Okay. Very reasonably priced. And then last up, I do the warm audio. And it would be last up. Do not consider the Clark Technique. Don't do it. Waste of money. Okay. But, and that's just my opinion. Okay. Those people out there that have it, don't get upset. I just think you get exactly what you pay for. You spend $300 on a compressor, you're going to get a $300 compressor. If you want a $300 compressor, you'd be better with a plug-in, but knock yourself out. Okay. But that's just my 2 cents on it. And I've got one right over there. Oh, it was given to me a long time ago. So anyway, that's the approach I would take. That's the approach I would take. Tracking, mix bus. Tracking, mix bus. There's other things you can do. These are the core fundamentals as far as I'm concerned. Okay. It's how I run my mix bus. Okay. And it's the way I think you should probably run yours. And I've done a lot of things. I've changed a lot of things. I've gone in the box, out of the box. I've done it back and forth. I've gone every which way but Sunday. That's how I landed up. So if you like the things I talk about on this channel, do me a favor, hit that like button and that subscribe button, and then that notification bell so you know when I got a new video out. Love talking about this stuff. This is called Studio Talk. That's why I'm getting a little bit long-winded, but I'm going to give you things to consider. I'm going to give you all the things to consider and not just tell you what to do. So therefore, the next time you're in a situation to make a decision, you don't need to get my opinion because I've given you the thought process that should go behind making those decisions. Okay. At least that's what I'm trying to do. Hopefully that's working. Okay. Until next time, I hope every one of you have a great day. Bye-bye.